There we go. That
Hey.
was smart, wasn't it? And it's so funny. It's quite an abrupt ending as well, I think. I always expect it to kind of, ease in nicely to a bit of a harmonized long note.
No.
Doesn't. No, it just goes, boom, you're live.
There you are.
So here we are. So we are live. We're live across LinkedIn, across Facebook, and across Periscope. So especially, we've never gone live on Periscope before. So if you are watching this via Twitter, please do let me know, because we're doing that over YouTube.
Feeds directly into Twitter, right?
Feeds directly into Twitter, into Facebook, well, here you go. The power of the modern world. So, Will, look, thank you so much for spending half an hour with me today. I know this is some precious downtime between clients. So here we go. And I'm going to interrupt my, because look at this, working well via Twitter. We're already in. Thank you, MJR81. That is awesome. But no, thank you for taking the time. I do really appreciate it.
Right, but yeah,
and
good.
And so for context, Will, you're a therapist.
Yep.
You're a coach. You run your own business. You've also been a guest on the Career Dad Show podcast, where you shared your own journey into therapy. You're just an all-round nice bloke. Which is,
I'm not going to say yes to that. I'm going to just take the compliment.
And I think that's worth. It often gets lost in the accolades of achievements, and so I think it's worth calling it out. But
that idea of like person rather than thing that we do, right?
Can you imagine? So I think I really wanted to have this conversation, because we had a Career Dad kind of catch up. I think it was last week. Now we had a breakfast catch up. And you started sharing with me about a number of things. And I think, if I haven't got mistaken, because we talked about the love languages, which was brand new information to me, and I thought it was fantastic. But did you also share, was it that time that you also shared about your passions and that kind of Venn diagram? Was that the other time?
That was a different time, where we talked about the idea of ikigai, which is the kind of Japanese thing of finding your purpose. And there's lots of stuff around that, whether it's truly the interpretation of it. But there was I think a possibly Dutch guy that kind of like used it and kind of created this idea of how we find our purpose. Purpose in life. And that's kind of a process that I'd taken myself through, going into being a counselor, because at the time I was running a charity with my wife, and just like there was so much of it that we loved doing, but I was having to step back from the thing that I truly loved, which was working one-to-one with people. And so we kind of made the decision to close something to actually follow my purpose. And and same for my wife, actually, that it was kind of like we were doing something that we knew was really, really good, but knew that we had to stop it in order to be our best. And a lot of people kind of really struggled with that idea that we would stop doing something that had so much social impact and so much good. Almost like accusations of almost being selfish doing something, but actually finding a place where we're a lot happier, and like as individuals, and how we can be best for each other and best for our kids, because we were doing day and doing night and working, and every conversation that we had as a couple was around this thing. And actually there was something missing, so we had to kill off the beast that we kind of birthed in the first place, in order to kind of do the thing that we'd be really happy doing.
That must have been so incredibly difficult, and it really resonates what you're saying, because sometimes with the Career Dad work on top of quite a full-on day job as well, sometimes my wife said to me on a number of occasions, she's like, do you know what, you need something like Career Dad, as in to be a customer of, as opposed to the creator. And I'm like, and it's I just so that just completely resonates. How do you, especially when you're doing something that is such social good, how do you go, nah, That must be hard.
I think the majority of it was because I wasn't happy doing it. So what's
Right.
like,
What's the point?
no, that's probably not true. I was happy
Okay.
doing it, but I wasn't like really kind of feeling like I was in my, in my flow, in my kind of
Yeah.
just fulfilling that purpose of what I kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like which is I am at my best when I am, one to one or with small groups with people bringing
Yeah.
change, be it therapeutically, be it coaching, be it whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so actually to take that step against the kind of grain of what society and people were saying felt like
Yeah.
if I'm doing this with people, I need to be brave enough to take that step myself.
That's
So,
fair. That's fair.
do you know,
And
and
it's
there was a
yeah.
kind of idea about being congruent, like how can I
Mm.
take and I feel that with self-care as well, which at times I'm really good at, and when I'm really bad, I'm going, how can I not be doing this when
Yeah.
this is a fundamental thing that I kind of spend my time talking about with people.
That's
And so
so
there
funny.
is a kind of a thing of kind of like feeling, I guess, a little bit kind of I've got to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
And that's a driver in me as well to kind of like it
Yeah.
really helps me kind of keep my feet grounded, I guess, in all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I might have just lost you for a second there, but hopefully, yeah, no, you're back. Cool. And
Yeah,
because I
no,
want
I'm
to
here.
talk, I
I'm
wanted,
here.
awesome. I
Yeah,
want to talk to you. I want to talk about the therapy side of things, but just before we get onto that,
yeah.
how 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 easy is it for you to know the right advice and to give the right advice to someone else, but then to take that internally and use it on yourself? Do you
Oh,
struggle with that?
I'm rubbish at it. I'm still human.
Excellent.
It's like, yeah, it's like let's not kid ourselves to think that just because I've done this training and I can help people and I've got these skills and there's this natural instinct in me that I can kind of bring about and enable change in other people, to think that I
Yeah.
am not immune from being human myself.
Good.
Yeah, and so that's why I connect monthly with a clinical supervisor. I connect, I enter into at times my own therapy when I kind of feel that there's an element of stuff happening in me. And I've got an amazing wife who constantly kicks my ass when I'm not doing it right, And
Yeah.
I also make myself accountable to certain people as well. So
Yeah.
there's a really close friend who lives back down in Bath, where I'm from, and she's a kind of a children's well-being kind of coach from like early years, kind of preschool and early years school. And
Mm.
we've known each other for 20, 30 years, I expect by now. And we are in constant contact and kind of going, what are you doing to look after yourself? What are you doing? Where are your pain points right now?
Yeah.
What's your client load look like? What are you, those kind of things. And so
Yeah.
being open to myself to make myself accountable. And then sometimes I just get it wrong. Like I just, in lockdown, there are times when I've just got it wrong, where my focus has been on, I've got to somehow rebuild a business. I've got to somehow do this. And my focus gets lost on the, how do I care for myself? And
Yeah.
things like exercise easily drifted the stuff that I know that I need to be doing.
Okay.
Because the focus can easily get caught up in other stuff.
Let's
And I'm
can
not
we
immune to
can
that.
well, and I say good. I don't mean that in a horrible way. I just mean, it's good to know
Well, it makes me
that.
human. It makes me
Yeah,
human.
exactly. No, exactly. And I really want to. This is a really good segue into the therapy and just the effects of lockdown, because you talk about exercise and how have you struggled making time for yourself, having work, kids, being husband, growing business? Where do you fit into that
Yeah, I
equation?
kind of feel. Yeah, I mean, I really do feel like this in lockdown, like everything got turned upside down. So 80% of my work was with young people in schools. So immediately I lost everything.
Yeah.
And I wanted to keep working because that's a bit of an ethic. But my
Yes.
wife works as well, and so what we wanted to do, we've always kind of co-parented. We've always kind of taken a blended approach of who does what when. It's a job that needs doing. It's not gender specific. It's just, this is our house, this is our family, this is what needs to be done, so let's do it, right?
Sure.
And so for 3 days a week, I was doing kind of helping the kids with their schoolwork. Now, our eldest, she's just starting GCSEs this year. Our youngest last year had just started secondary school. She had more needs to be supported through learning, so it had to be, hands-on throughout the whole lockdown. And so 3 days a week I was kind of supporting them. So I had 2 days a week to work, and I just gave therapy away. I offered a pay what you can if you can. Wow. Whether it be frontline workers, people furloughed, people unemployed. And so for the majority of lockdown, I've been doing what has been essentially very low paid. I lost all my work in schools. I kept a couple of young people, but obviously with the government scheme in place, I was able to kind of keep going with that. And I was able to offer that kind of stuff out. But my focus was, kids, supporting my wife through her job, which has been kind of a bit of an emotional drain for her at times. She works for a domestic violence project as a fundraising manager. So there's a lot of pressure.
Skyrocketing right now, right?
Yeah. And a lot of pressures with finance and a lot of pressures with that kind of stuff. So she's working in that. So it was keep the business going, kind of keep relevant, I guess, keep support there for teenage children, and support my wife and keep the house going. And I naturally fell into kind of, and we'll get to this in a minute, kind of like the love languages thing was acts of service, like keep going, keep on top of, whether it's a male trope of kind of like, the do action equals keep family going equals they are loved, I'm okay, you're okay, therefore I'm okay. And it was a I think during lockdown a lot of people kind of fell into those kind of like those base instincts that they have and do, which aren't necessarily the most helpful, but it's that fight, flight, freeze thing. I had to come out and try and organize and create, and so that for me, I think unspoken and unsaid was I just need to give everything to everybody else. I need to make sure that everyone's okay. And I think on top of that, I'm kind of going, I know that I'm not going to be going back to school in the way that I was. And it turns out at the moment, I'm not going back to schools at all. So I've really just shaped. So the 20% of my business that wasn't school, which was kind of coaching and working with adults, is now 100% of what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
And so on top of all of that, I'm going, right, what's my business going to look like? And as my kids go back to school kind of next week, it's just me full time working on just regrowing, restarting, developing something new. And who knows where that's going to end up? I've got a few ideas, but
which we might come on to. Who knows? But we've just got this fantastic question in from Chris. I found planning my week and planning my day to ensure I'm doing the things I need to do for exercise, relationships, job searching, being structured and a bit selfish. I have found benefits those around me and improve my mental state. Do you do anything similar? And how do you keep yourself in a positive mindset?
I think first of all, it's that idea of I'd want to challenge Chris on that idea of being selfish. Okay. I was at a thing called some people may have heard of it, Do Lectures, over in Wales, and which was an amazing thing. And there was a participant there from Finland, Norway, I think, and she kind of talked about this of reclaiming the word selfish and creating it as a selfist. So so we're changing the nature of it, and we're saying, right, okay, this is not a negative thing. If I put myself first, I am going to be at my best for the people who need me the most.
Okay.
And I think, quite often we kind of stop ourselves going, I'm not going to go out and do that. I'm not going to jump on the paddleboard. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm not going to do a run. I'm not going to meet up with my friends because that feels very selfish because everyone has all these other needs and I should be there to meet them. And I think that the idea that when we recognize what we as an individual need, how can we, in communication with our partners, husbands, wives, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, how can we work with them to say, actually, what I need to do for me to be at my best for you, I need to have this bit of time. If it starts going, every night of the week I'm going out, and every day during the day I'm going to do this, and at weekends I'm going fishing, and all of that, then we're missing the point of it. But I think the idea that it's a shift, it's a mindset shift where we say doing this is actually at my best for other people.
Yeah, and I'm glad you kind of at the end mentioned about the I guess the balance side of that, because I was thinking, if I said I was going golfing every evening and snowboarding every but it's okay because then I'm in the best place to put you guys first. That might be questioned.
I don't think you're putting them first, but in the house then. It's like it's my role then to work with my wife and go, what is it that you need to be at your best? So do you need to, sit in your friend's garden and have a glass of wine on a Friday night? Yes, it is, because you love connecting and being with people. So when you're doing that, I can jump online and game if that's my thing. I can sit and read a book. I can, sit in my office and work if that's what I need to do. Or I can, I can put some vinyl on. I can, put some headphones on. I can do whatever it is that I need to do. And that's the,
No,
and it is about balance. It is about balance, but also it's about modeling some behavior. If you've got children, how do you say to the children, like, what do you do? With my youngest, who's anxious about school and going back and returning, where we've told her, don't be with people, don't get anywhere near people. And she had an induction day type thing today for year 8. And she's going, there were like 200 people around me in a playground. And we've spent the last 6 months saying, walk away, make sure there's distance, make sure there's this. And now we're going, no, it's fine. Just go in school. And it's okay. So like, what does she need to do? My eldest is doing her day tomorrow, and she's like, today, she's like, I know this isn't going to happen. So she's watching Frozen 2, having a sing along, making, cupcakes in a mug in a microwave, and, just doing stuff that's good for her.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And Chris, fantastic question. Thank you. If anyone else does have any questions, do put them up, and we'll try our best to get to them. And before I really want to talk about the love languages, and just before we do that, I think I really want to echo your point around modeling to our kids about things that we enjoy and things that we like as well. Because even today, so my son, he's just discovered Zelda on the Switch, right? And he is just amazing. Like, oh man, he is consumed by this. And so, because it's my kind of game, was actually is my game, but it's also my kind of game. So he's, every opportunity, like I'm making breakfast, he's like, daddy, look at this, daddy. And so then I go, I've got to work, mate. And he's like, what? Whoa. What do you mean? We haven't played this morning, and that's that tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. But also I caught myself this morning because I said, I've got to work, I wish I could sit and play with you instead of working. And then I thought, hang on a minute, am I even subconsciously setting this, and I'm a massive overthinker, but am I subconsciously setting this image that work is bad? Because actually I don't think it is. So then I very quickly was like, thankfully I enjoy work, and if you're lucky you get to do. And it's so funny because it's going to be interesting talking to him as he gets older. What was it like having me as a dad? But
I had therapy when I was younger, because my dad had his own business and self-employed and worked every weekend. And I remember kind of like going, he was there, he wasn't there. And that was a thing that I had to think about, but he provided in loads of different ways because it was a successful business. And if I wanted time with him, then it was like I had to caddy for him, or I had to help him in the garden, chop wood for the fire. Literally, it was like that I had to do to spend time with him. I'm convinced that my kids are going to get to their 20s and go, he was always there.
Yes.
He always made us talk about our feelings. Like he wouldn't leave us alone. I just wanted, do you know what I mean? We we can only do the best that we've got with the information that we've got, with our personalities, and just like
what is so funny, because I recorded a podcast with a guy, Greg Reed, who's kind of, you know, international speaker kind of guy, and he was saying, you know, in our father's generation, kids on average, I think he said, had it was either 6 or 7 minutes FaceTime with their dad predominantly.
Okay.
Back that was it. And he said, so you have this generation of kids who go, you know, my dad was never there. And he said, now you are going to have kids who, when they get older, are going to say, my dad was never not there. You know, I never had that. And it's so funny. And the other thing, because I, you know, just, and then we will talk about love languages, but just on that, you know, the importance of modeling. I love my golf, right? I would play every day if I could. And so sometimes it gets to a weekend and I go for a round of golf. And, you know, I've had my son say, you always go and play golf, and, you know, you never play with me. And you go, well, actually, hang on a minute. I've just played with you for like 3 hours this morning. But, you know, I have said to him, I love playing with you and I love you, but I also love golf. And that's okay, because I don't want him. You know, you talked about your therapy. I had therapy last year because I was so all consumed about trying to do things that pleased everyone else instead of actually doing what pleased me. And so now I think there's a balance, but at the same time, I was doing nothing for the fear that it might turn out bad for someone else, or not even turn out bad, but just, you know, not. So I'm very clear to say to him, look, if you enjoy something and you want to do that and it doesn't hurt anybody else and you're still doing the other things that you need to do, that's cool. Like, go do that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, love languages.
Okay.
I mean, this was brand new information. But like when you said love languages, I thought it was gonna get a bit rude, but it's not at all.
It's not at all. It's one of those things that kind of like, you have this bit of information, you just assume that, like, well, everyone knows it, right? But it's like it's not. And I think it started we were kind of talking about at the time, just kind of like how we interact with, you know, our partners and how we interact with our children, and just, you know, even thinking about you and your son and Zelda. And what that means, you know, what he's looking for, maybe that connection. That connection isn't that you've given him Zelda, it's the fact that you'll sit with him with undivided attention, that you enter the world, you know. And one of the things I always did, you know, even before kind of journeying as a therapist, like when my kids were really young, that idea of when I'm going to do something with them, I am purposefully going to enter their world. So, you know, the phone, you know, that gets put down, that gets put to one side, and you have my attention. So when one kid wanted to do puzzles, my eldest, like when she was younger, just loved puzzles. It's like, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do it with you. And it is that undivided attention. It kind of made us start looking at this idea, and my wife and I were running some parenting stuff at the time, doing some community stuff, and we really kind of got into this. And it's very basic, but it really speaks volumes, I think, when we start to do it. So the premise of love languages is that we will, and it can be very American at times. No offense. You know, the book, when you read it, talks about your love tank needing to be full, you know, and this is a PG version. This isn't, you know,
it's a bit grim.
Yeah, it does a bit, doesn't it? But the idea is that what we need to do is learn the language that our partner or our child speaks, right? What that means is that, I'll give you an example. Well, I'll tell you what the 5 love languages are to start with. So there's words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Okay. And so within that, for somebody to feel loved, they need to have their love language spoken to them. So I will give myself and my wife as an example, right? My wife's love language is receiving gifts. And this isn't necessarily monetary value. It can also be kind of gift of time. It can be a gift of physical presence, being with somebody, you know, when it's this is really important to me, but that's really important to you. So I'm going to give you my time rather than do the thing that I love. But it can be, flowers from a petrol station because I've seen them and I've thought, do you know what? My wife loves flowers. It can be, in lockdown, maybe a bottle of gin, or it can be, a lemon to go with the bottle of gin. Or it can just be, something really simple. It doesn't, it's not about monetary value.
Yeah.
My love language is words of affirmation. Words are really important to me. Kind of a record of what you feel about somebody. Now, I will tell my wife that she's done an amazing job. I will say that she's done amazing things, that she's an amazing friend. And for her, it's good to hear, but it's not her love language.
Yeah.
Another example might be, so acts of service is kind of you tend to get a primary and a secondary love language. And so my primary is words of affirmation. My secondary is acts of service. So I might go.
Keep going. I've got a knock at the door, which is true.
Yeah, no, that's good. I might have. I might have done all the ironing, all the cleaning, all the stuff around the house that needs doing, as my love language, as my gift to my wife. And she goes, great, that's fine, but all I need, that's just a job that needs to be done, right? So it's doing something that is just a job that needs to be done does not show her that I love her. It's just a job that needs to be done in the house. So if I'm talking that, and if I'm giving that as my act of love to my wife, she wouldn't be receiving it as an act of love because it is simply just a job. Whereas if those are just jobs that need to be separated in the house. So kind of doing something is just, but I'm speaking my love. And I'm like, well, why do you not feel love? Because this is my love language.
Yeah.
Whereas if she was to do it in the house, I feel loved.
Yes.
And because we've always taken this, I've tended in the last few years to work more hours than she has. So she's picked up more of the kind of stuff at home. But if there's a job that needs doing, I will do it. I will be doing it. And that's my act of love. She'll be doing it. And it's just a job that needs to be done. So she doesn't feel loved at it. But I'm kind of like, at my worst, and when I'm not conscious of this whole thing, I will be saying, why are you not feeling loved? Because I'm doing all this stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And so firstly, apologies for the introduction. It was
career dad,
Zelda.
Mate. Career
dad. I mean, I did text him to say, can you just come upstairs and knock at the door? Because it'd make this all a bit more real. It was Zelda related. It was how do you make a campfire? So that was that. But I was still listening to what you were saying, and one of the key, and you kind of touched it at the end there. If you weren't aware of these love languages, and if you've got, and I love this, right? So we've got MGR81 talking about Pokemon Go with him and his little sister, common interests, and that's finding those common interests, super cool. And if it's either with your kids or with your partner, and you're going, I'm giving you love in my love language, and they're going, what? And what could that could be pretty bad, right?
So I mean, this is like a communication thing that then happens. So if you think about a couple at the very beginning of their relationship, one might be really attentive in a certain area. So the guy that wrote the book talked about a husband and wife who at the beginning of the relationship, before they were married, he, whenever he went round to her house, was kind of like helping keep the house clean and doing stuff and doing all this kind of really naturally for him. When they got married, he stopped doing any of that because he grew up with a dad who was, I work, you look after the house. And very, very subconsciously just fitted into that kind of routine. Now, her love language was acts of service. So when he was doing that, she was feeling loved. When he stopped doing that, he didn't feel love anymore. Or the guy who will do all the ironing and end up in marriage counseling going, of course I love you. I do all this and I do all that. And she's like,
Yeah.
I just want to, but you never hold my hand when we're in public.
Yeah.
And for him, he's like, well, what's that got to do with it? Like,
yeah.
no, I love you because look, I do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not, that can be stereotypical, but for me, it's words of affirmation. If my wife's not telling me that I've done a good job or that I'm, I feel confident in myself that I'm doing a good job, but to hear it and to kind of like, as I say, it's almost like a record. And when she's really specific with that, I kind of go, not only have you taken time to tell me, but you've taken time to notice those things.
Yeah.
So when you tell me that, it's amazing. When we first started dating, I was living in Bath, she was living in Greenwich. She wrote all the time to me. Like all the time. So reading stuff, seeing words, even, 19 years married this year, it's kind of like seeing those words at that point was like, it was really important. When you get married and you're with each other, you kind of don't think about those kind of things. But when she does, it has a real impact on me.
Yeah.
And we drift, as a couple, we'll drift, and I will end up talking to her in words of affirmation, and she'll buy me stuff. And I'm like, I don't need stuff. Like for me, if I need it and I've got the money, I'll buy it.
Yes.
At Christmas, if you want to buy me something, I'll give you an Amazon wish list. I'll give you, whatever you want. So and I'll tell you the stuff that I need. Exactly she'll find something in a shop, or she'll make something really creative, and she'll make it and she'll give it to me, and I'll look at it and I'll go, that's really nice.
Yeah.
But
that's so funny.
It doesn't, of course it means something, especially if she's made something. Of course there is meaning in it. And usually she'll make something and there'll be words in it. And so it will do something.
Okay.
But so it's like she's sneakily getting in her love language as well as speaking mine, which is great. But it is about receiving the gift, not giving it. So she will buy stuff, and I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't. No,
but it doesn't tick the same boxes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because as you're saying, I'm almost thinking about the relationship with my mum, for example, and I'm like, she says to me, she said, it's your birthday, what do you want? I say, I don't want anything. I've got to get you something. Oh, just about Amazon voucher. Perfect. That's it. No, it's too impersonal. I'm like, I don't care. No, because you'll get me something that I don't want or I don't need, or not like if I say, oh, I'm really interested in some headphones, I'm talking about some Bose headphones, or
exactly headphones.
Right. So not some $4.99 top of the range Bluetooth. So and it's and it's so funny where and I have to remind when I speak to my wife and say, look, we can't just get them a voucher because that's an issue, so we need to do something to show that it's like a thoughtful gift or whatever. But as well, I think so important from a relationship with our spouses or significant others, but also with our kids, because we all grew up in whatever circumstance we did, and I didn't have as much time with my dad as I'd have liked, with divorced parents and stuff. So then I bring that to my family, and I'm like, so then I'll be like, oh, Theo doesn't want to really spend much time with me right now. I'm not doing something right. I'm not loving him because I'm not projecting how I would want onto him. He's sat there happy as Larry because, as you say, I've just spent 10 minutes focused in on Zelda. And that's him. That's what his needs are. And so I think, and for people watching this, am I right in thinking if you literally just Google 5 love languages, and there's like tests?
If you literally do 5 lovelanguages.com/quizzes, it will I can probably do this myself. Hang on, if I go to
you talk, I can create a banner.
I'm putting it on. Let's have a look on the Facebook
awesome
thing, and I'll see if
.com/quizzes.
Yeah, if you put 5 love language quiz, so there you go. That should be it now. but 5 love languages quiz. You'll get page that I've put in the chat, and it just gives you an idea. It's really simple. It's like 20 questions, something like that, and like they seem really obvious, but I see this as like a starting point, a launch point to bring awareness. Kind of go, get yourself, get your partner to do it, and kind of go, right, yours is, what does it mean if your love language is quality time and my love language is acts of service? Because quality time doesn't mean sitting watching Netflix together with your phone out and a glass of wine and you're both looking at your phone and double screening at the time. It means, you know, undivided attention. Perhaps it's physical touch, you know, that, and it, you know, we're not talking about sex here. We're talking about simply just like holding hands, that kind of gentle touching of an arm or whatever, just to know I am with you, I'm here, I'm present with you. You know, sitting on the same sofa, like, but looking at each other, you know, with leaning on the arm of the chair, but just legs crossed, whatever, just that physical presence that you can have. Cool. And if one is that and another is, you know, receiving gifts, you've got to then start asking the question, do I, if mine is, you know, receiving gifts, but you just want to hold my hand, or you just want, like, it's quality time. Quality time is great. I think we need that regardless as couples. We need all of these. But if we're not intentional with the language of our partner, you know, and then I would say, right, well, if your partner's is receiving gifts and you don't often do it, each week try and challenge yourself to do something, to buy something. If it's quality time, put time in the diary where it's like phones are off, screens are off, and you do something. So me and my wife, we, you know, intentionally will play cards every so often, you know, we'll do that. And it's just us talking, phones off, music on maybe, but just looking at each other across the table, playing cards, laughing and connecting in a different way than we normally would. But it's the same for kids. It's the same for kids. So when we had our second, it was like learning to parent from scratch. Our eldest was like, she would sit at a table with crafts and art and pens and whatever, leave her for 2 hours. You could get on and do the stuff that you needed to do around the house. Our youngest, when she got to that stage, we'd put stuff on the table and she'd look at us and go, where are you off to? Like, no, you come and sit here and do it with me. And so where you thought you would have an hour or whatever it is where their attention was on something, all of a sudden you didn't have that time. So you had to kind of go, no, you've got to do that because that's what we do in this house. Is going, maybe actually you saying that is telling me something that I need to know. And so those quizzes that are on there, there's ones for people who are single, there's ones for people who are together, there's children, there's friendship ones, because it's all similar.
That's so cool. And it looks like Chris has already done the test, which is great. And do you know what's really funny? Because as I say, I heard this for the first time, when we caught up Thursday or whatever, so a week ago, right? Since then, and I don't know whether it's always been floating about and I just haven't picked up on it. But you know, since then, I've been invited onto a podcast with my wife to do the quizzes kind of live and talk about that. And I'm like, this is weird. And then also, I know you're a fan of TikTok as well. I was watching this TikTok video and, you know, and there was this guy who was kind of doing there's a thing, it seems at the moment, of people doing like their dating profile, almost like those old like 80s VHS videos. And one, you know, it's like, you know, what would be the best date I could take you on? What would be that? And and he's saying, you know, what's your love language? And so I thought that was quite fascinating. One, from it, you know, that being a question asked, but also, and I want just I know I've only got a couple of minutes, 2 minutes left. I want your take on this, because what is better, or is there a better if we were dating and I said, let's go there, right? Man.
Okay.
Thank you. And you, if we were dating and I said, what's your love language? And this is mine. And just off the bat, we know. Is that better than discovering?
I I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think there's any better. I don't think
Okay.
there's one that is better than not. I think
Okay.
with any of these things, it's trying not to become complacent and not to
Okay.
stop discovering about each other. You know, and this, you know, you're what, in your 30s, right? Mid late 30s, I'm going to say. You know,
Jeez. All right. Yeah.
you look like you're in your 20s, but you know,
Mhm.
but like I learned that I learned this kind of, I don't know, about 10 years ago. I'm kind of, next birthday I'm 47, right? So I'm like 12 years ago I learned this. That
Yeah.
was kind of nearly halfway through our marriage, and
Yes.
you know, we learned something.
Yeah.
This is just a label for kind of doing it. It's when we stop being intentional with discovering something
Yeah.
about our relationship. Because if it's, you know, and this may not work for people, right? It's only theories aren't just truth, right?
Yeah.
Let's stop flirting. All right.
I know. I saw that. Look, there's
Yeah, yeah.
clearly some tension. We'll work it out offline.
But theories are simply theories,
Yeah.
right? That's all they are. Is
Mhm.
there's nothing kind of like, there's nothing magic about them. Even within therapy, I will explain a theory and go, but you might think that it's a load of nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine, right? If it doesn't work
Yeah.
for you, it doesn't work for you. It's about finding, you know, with any of my clients, it's about going, well, what language works for you? What works for you? If this
Yeah.
works for you as a couple, if you discover it today, if you take it home, you do it, and it transforms you and your relationship, brilliant. If
Yeah.
it doesn't, but there's still a block in your relationship, the
Yeah.
best thing that you can do at that point is to kind of go, well, how do we move forward? How do we keep discovering? How are we going to show that interest in not only ourselves, but in our
Mm,
relationship with each other?
absolutely. But I love that, and I just want to say, well, once again, thank you so much for your
No worries.
time. If
Yeah.
people want to find out more about you, more about your therapy, more about your coaching, that is
Yeah.
just Will Taylor online, willtaylor.online. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much most places, I think, that's where I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would highly recommend it. I mean, every single time that you do join one of our Career Dead catch-ups, I'm conscious that it turns into a group therapy session. But
It's,
hey,
if it brings value, right? It doesn't really matter.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But no, so definitely go check out Will. Obviously, connect Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, but go check out willtaylor.online. And
Yeah.
thanks
Cheers, Dan.
again. Really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
No worries. Have a good day.
You too.